Alright, Alien Romulus has been out for a weekend now, so I'm gonna do a spoiler talk for this movie. That is a spoiler warning. If you have not seen this movie, that is okay. Alien is not for everyone, that's just a fact. So if this is not your thing, I get it. That being said, if you have not seen this movie and you're planning on it, I advise to crawl away from this video, because I will be talking about what happens in Alien Romulus in detail. If you have seen this movie or you don't care, you're fine. Okay, so there's a lot to talk about when it comes to the spoilers in this movie. I mean, even starting off with the opening logo, the 20th Century Studios logo, it does the fanfare, but then it holds that penultimate note. And at first, I didn't even know this until a friend told me that was from Alien 3, a movie I still have not seen because I've heard it's just bad. So I didn't know that's what that was from. But yeah, man, that is so effective right there. And the very first thing in the movie hasn't even started yet. The opening logos is just really effective holding that last note. It's just leaving it unresolved. I'm like, come on. Ugh, that got under my skin. So the movie begins with, surprise, the wreck of the Nostromo from the original Alien movie. We remember in the original Alien, Ellen Ripley, Sigourney Weaver, blew up the Nostromo trying to kill that xenomorph. And so here we see the wreckage of the explosion, and it turns out the xenomorph was recovered from here. More on that later. So we meet our main characters, Rain and Andy. They live on this planet, this mining colony called Jackson's Star, and the data that shows up on the screen, it tells us that this planet gets 0 hours of daylight every year, so it never sees the sunlight, which honestly, isn't that kind of unbelievable? Like, don't humans need the sun to live? But it's fiction, so I'll roll with it. And besides, that really does set the tone for the movie, doesn't it? A planet that gets 0 sunlight? Yeah, way to go, Alvarez. It really tells us that this movie is going to be dark in more than one sense of the word. Also, the fact that Andy is a synthetic, which was not revealed to us in the trailers, so that is a spoiler. I thought that was actually pretty interesting to reveal that within the first, 5 minutes of the movie. I mean, David Johnson really does stand out as Andy in this movie. Everyone's talking about him because he was great. Although he even does at one point bring back that line from Aliens.
I prefer the term artificial person myself.
Yeah, Andy says that. Bishop Lance Henriksen said that in Aliens. I was actually fine with that, though. And so Rain, Kaylee Spaney, and Andy are trying to get out of this life. They don't want to end up like Rain's parents who died down in the mines. Katniss Everdeen can relate. Her father shared a similar fate. But man, that scene where Rain is talking to that businesswoman, and you see her on the computer, she changes her quota to double the hours. Oh man, did I ever feel that? Because companies, they do that. I mean, yeah, obviously Wayland Yutani is a fictional exaggeration, but I've heard stories of how companies will do that. They'll extend people's work hours for whatever reason. So yeah, you immediately feel sorry for Rain. That sucks. So Rain and Andy, they join their friends. Tyler, who is Rain's ex-boyfriend. Bjorn, who is the douchebag, who is Tyler's cousin. Kay, who is Tyler's sister. And Navarro, who is Bjorn's adopted sister. They go up to this outpost to retrieve these cryostasis chambers because they want to escape to this planet called Ivaga, where they hear everything is better. They want to see the sun. That's why they go up there to this big outpost that is actually called the Renaissance, which is divided into 2 halves, Romulus and Remus. Which, alright, yeah, I did my research into Romulus and Remus. I knew that Romulus was the first king of Rome thanks to Aquaman, but Romulus and Remus, they were born as twins, and according to myth, they were both suckled as kids by a she-wolf. That's kind of the metaphor that Fede Alvarez was going for this movie. Humans getting power from some bigger thing. In this case, the xenomorphs. I'll get to that later, but I just thought that was interesting. And also we learned that Kay's pregnant. That will be important towards the end. We do learn later on that this planet Ivaga does not allow artificial people on its grounds. One of the guys spills that. Rain knew that, but she never told Andy. She didn't have the heart to do it. So now I wonder, if they're on their way there at the end of this movie, what's gonna go down if they get there? It's just something I thought of. But anyway, this crew is up on the Romulus, and they get the chambers, but they don't have enough fuel to get them to Ivaga. So they explore and they find this other big cryo chamber room, which also happens to have a bunch of facehuggers in it. And yeah, okay, this did get me thinking, are these possibly David's facehugger embryos from the end of Alien Covenant? Because we remember at the end of that movie, David had these little facehugger embryos that he tucked in.
I'll tuck in the children.
Again, I know that movie was divisive, but I do want to see a continuation of where that goes, because it obviously did leave it open. I just wonder if this could be them. Then the question would be, how did they get here? It's just a thought that crossed my mind. And so we get all the facehuggers, and as we know from the trailers, one of them nails Navarro. So now Navarro's going the way of Cain. Everyone starts freaking out, and they're like, how do we get this thing off? They enlist the help of the other synthetic in the room. His name is Rook. And he is the same model of android that Ian Holmes' character Ash was in the original Alien, so he looks and sounds just like the late Ian Holmes. This was a big deal, and here's how I see it.
Yes?
I don't think this android necessarily had to be the same model as Ash. It could have been another model entirely, wouldn't have changed the plot really at all. Could have had the same lines, the same motivations. Because seeing the likeness of Ian Holmes, we automatically know from the original movie Alien that this guy is bad news, because he was in the first movie. Doesn't matter that this is a different character, because in this universe, we associate that face with the character Ash, who was an asshole. I think it honestly would have served the plot better if Rook were played by someone else, because then we wouldn't have seen his assholery coming. And plus, it would save us the trouble of having to look at a CG face, because that was obviously a CG face. So yeah, it was neat to see, but ultimately unnecessary in my opinion. In any case, Rook explains that the xenomorphs were being studied here on the Renaissance, since the one that was blown out of the airlock at the end of the original Alien, it didn't die. We learned that lack of oxygen and lack of food is no problem for this perfect organism, which honestly I was like, alright, because that's not really a retcon, right? It's not retconning the end of Alien, because all we know for sure from the end of Alien is that it was blown out of the airlock. We don't know that it died. I'm sure everyone assumed that for 45 years, but now I guess we learned that everyone's assumptions were wrong. So that xenomorph, the original one, was taken on board the Romulus, and the scientists attempted to study it, and of course it just started wreaking havoc and killing everybody, and making more aliens somehow. Not sure exactly how, but whatever. That also explains the first scene in this movie. So the crew does successfully get the facehugger off of Navarro's face by freezing it, so okay, I guess we know now. We now know how to successfully remove a facehugger from someone's face while it's still there. Yeah, I think that's actually the first time we're learning that. So I think that'll be good information to have for future Alien movies. Too bad it's too late in Navarro's case, because she dies. This chest bursting scene really is awesome. It is different due to the fact that, I mean, she's in Kay's arms, so it's happening right in front of Kay. And Navarro even says, she's like, please don't let me die. I was like, oh, that hits. I mean, I'd probably say the same thing, I'll be real. And then the chest burster comes out, it's tangible, it's there, and then Kay lets out that scream. Fantastic scene, dude. And so, since Andy has that new module in his head that allows him to have more access in this place, he got it from Rook. And I guess that allows Rook to override Andy's current objective, which is to do what's best for Rain. Now he's gonna have a new objective, to do what is best for the company, Weyland-Yutani. Oh, the schemes. Which is why I love this scene, where Kay is trapped on the other side of the door with the now fully grown xenomorph, and Rain, Andy, and Tyler are on the other side, so they're like, alright Andy, open the door, let's rescue Kay. And Andy makes the completely logical decision not to do that, because he argues if he opens the door, that thing will just kill us all. So he's sparing their lives in exchange for Kay's, at least that's what they think. Kay is taken away, she's not killed, I thought she was, but no, she's not dead yet. But that is how they see it, and so, yeah, Andy is seen as kind of an asshole here, but I love that, because it is probably true. If that door were to be open, yeah, that thing would just kill them all. It reminded me of the scene in 2014 Godzilla, where Bryan Cranston's wife was on the other side of the door where all the radiation was, and he had to seal it to save himself and everybody else, but let his wife die is just, yeah, that's good shit. Oh, wait a minute, I skipped forward. My bad. All right, rewind a little bit. We first have the scene where Andy, Rain, and Tyler, they had to walk through that corridor with all the facehuggers. I guess they actually get around by heat detection. That's how they detect their prey. So they elevate the temperature of the room to the same as the body temperature of the people, so the facehuggers won't detect them, and so they have to make their way through this room without making a sound. That's a great scenario. It's like a quiet place or something. Again, like, who thought of that? And the xenomorph is up there in its cocoon. Bjorn tries to tase it, but then the blood spurts out. That's how he dies. I love how Bjorn dies, honestly. From the dripping acid blood, it gets into his chest and he just, that was awesome. And then that's where the scene where Kay is trapped with the xenomorph happens. I already touched on that, so moving on. Eventually, we learn about this liquid extract that the scientists got from the xenomorphs. This is what they were going for, I guess. This substance that is supposed to perfect humanity and fix all of its flaws. The miracle that Mr. Weyland died searching for. We remember Mr. Weyland, Guy Pearce from the prequel films. And Rook calls it Prometheus Fire, a miracle stolen from the gods as a gift to humanity. Great way to tie the myths of Prometheus and Romulus together. That was genius. And of course, great way to tie it in with the movie Prometheus. And we even get the Prometheus theme coming back for a quick audio cameo. I love that theme so much. I always have. It's like honestly one of my favorite things about those movies. So I was pleasantly surprised to hear it again here in Alien Romulus. I thought that was awesome. Too bad this Prometheus fire doesn't actually work though, because we saw that they were testing it out on rats and it seemed to work at first, but no, once the characters leave, we actually see that the rat was mutated and died. So we're all like, oh, this is gonna come back and bite them in the ass big time. So later on, they're in that big, like, dank corridor with all the alien slime on the walls, and we see that Kay is actually alive. She's trapped in the wall in like a cocoon type thing. It reminded me of Stranger Things, like how Barbara was trapped in there, except she was already dead by that time. Not so is the case here with Kay. She's still alive for now. And so these xenomorphs attack. These xenomorphs, man, are they awesome. I already talked about them in my spoiler-free review, so I don't want to repeat myself here. I will show a cooler picture though, but man, those things were sweet. And so when they attack our crew, Tyler sacrifices himself to save his sister Kay. He gets impaled through the back. Actually, at first it looked like he was impaled like through his shoulder. It kind of reminded me of Dead by Daylight when they're hanging from the hook and the hook is impaling through their shoulder. That's what it reminded me of anyway. But yeah, since Kay is in super bad shape because she was hanging hanging in an alien xenomorph cocoon. Yeah, she takes that drug, that Prometheus fire medicine, that miracle. Big mistake. But if we're gonna talk about the most memorable scene in this movie, to me, it has to be the zero gravity acid blood scene where Rain and Andy had to float through this corridor and all the acid blood is just floating around them. That was awesome. That was such a cool concept and scenario. Again, that's where the most I was like, I want to know who came up with that. What was that creative process like in the writer's room? Because man, was that such a tension-filled scene. That was great because acid, just, no, yeah. Not for me. I don't want to melt. I don't want to go the way of the Wicked Witch of the West. Yeah, this scene was so creative. But there is still one xenomorph left, and Andy kills it by shooting it and bringing back a fan service line that I honestly was not too fond of in this movie. They're falling down the elevator, Andy's shooting this thing, he's like, get away from her. You bitch. I mean, sure, at the time when I saw this movie, I was applauding with everybody else, but upon thinking about it, yeah, I don't like it. For a few reasons, actually. Number one. It seemed pretty random for his character. His character's never really said anything like this up to this point. He's never sworn. Number two. It was unneeded since this alien was already away from Rain, and plus it was already dead at this point, so he didn't have to say get away from her. Number three. It didn't feel confident. I mean, one of the best things about that line in Aliens was the confidence with which Sigourney Weaver as Ellen Ripley delivered it.
Get away from her, you bitch!
And the alien queen had newts, so it made sense. That's what made that line so badass and memorable. In here, the line was spoken with hesitance, like he was unsure of himself when he was saying it, and it just felt weird, which ultimately leads to it just felt forced. There was just no good reason for Andy to say that in that moment, other than fan service. So yeah, that's my reasoning. Moving on to our finale. The xenomorphs are all gone, but since Kay took that drug, she gives birth because we know she was pregnant. Now that comes back to relevance. She gives birth to this, I don't even know how to describe this thing. This human xenomorph hybrid offspring. This is what I was talking about in my spoiler-free review when I was like, yeah, the ending just got a little too silly for my taste. And here's my thing with it. After thinking about it for a few days, my problem isn't with the concept of a hybrid. I mean, shit, alien movies always branch off and do new things. They always experiment and try different things in their movies. So fine, a human xenomorph hybrid's fine. My problem with it is simply how it looks. Because it has this big, like, Slender Man type body. I mean, minus the tentacles, but it's got this big, lanky body. It's like 8 feet tall, and it has a human face. Right there, I was like, that just looks goofy. Because it's a human face, but it doesn't speak. It just makes roaring noises like an alien would. And it took me out of it. It was just a little bit too over the top. And yeah, I'll compare this to the hybrid that was in Alien Resurrection, which, yeah, alright. I know that's supposed to be a really shit movie. Again, I still haven't seen it, but I know that it had a hybrid in there, and at least, and yeah, I'm gonna say this, at least that hybrid resembled an alien. I do kind of get why they didn't want to make this one resemble an alien, because they didn't want to remind audiences of Alien Resurrection, although it did anyway, so that's moot. I honestly think that thing would have looked better if it had more resemblance to a xenomorph, like the elongated head or something. Make it look cool, not silly. That thing just looked silly to me, and plus it had the alien nussy. Yeah, it was unsettling, in a bad way. I know, alien movies are supposed to be unsettling, but not like this. I hated it. I actually hated it. And just to be clear, this movie's still probably a whole lot better than Alien Resurrection. Just this one thing, the design of this offspring hybrid, not saying Resurrection did it better, but they kind of did it better. And alright, before I get crucified in the comments, I'll move on. Rain kills this thing the classic way by ejecting it out into space. And the movie ends with Rain and Andy being the sole survivors. Rain leaves her closing message. They go into cryo sleep and they are off to Ivaga. Question is, will they make it there? Do they have enough fuel? Cause I'm honestly not sure. Did they manage to get the rest of that fuel from the cryo chamber? I'm gonna guess yes, but I'm not sure. But that's where Alien Romulus ends. So in conclusion, Alien Romulus is a really cool movie. It's got some awesome concepts, really creative scenarios, and a badass score. I just think they should have made a different call with that weird mutant hybrid offspring. But I'd love to see a sequel to this, or at least some sort of continuation. I'd love for Fede Alvarez to come back to direct it, although I've also heard a lot of people say that they'd love for him to direct a Dead Space movie now, and I'd be fine with that too. I'm looking forward to the future of where this franchise goes from here. That Alien Earth series that's coming out on FX next year, can't wait for that. Just Alien, man. Alien. Solid horror franchise, and this is a solid installment of said horror franchise. Alright, so I got a couple questions for you here. Where do you think this franchise should go from here? And do you have any theories and or predictions for Alien Earth? Whatever you think, go ahead and leave a comment. And of course, thank you for subscribing. Peace!